So what's the difference between stopping with the hand or using the mute?
The difference is more the register that the note is placed in, and also how much you want to cut through the orchestra. Generally, the metal mute will cut through a little bit more. They both have the same sounds, and the metal mute will give you more power down into the low range. So if someone, for example, writes hand stopped and they put us in a low range, well, we're gonna pull out our metal mutes because that's gonna give you the best sound. Now, where hand stopping is advantageous to the metal mute is the metal mute you can't really change the sound pitch much. But with the hand stopping, you can make slight adjustments with your hand and raise and lower that stopped horn imperceptibly, which helps to tune chords. So if we have a chord that requires stopped sound, then we'll probably, if it's in the right range, if it's not too low, we'll go to the hand stopping because then we can make these small adjustments and tune with ourselves. Whereas the metal mute, it's going to give you what it is.
Okay, so in general, that's a judgment call that the section
In general,
makes.
that's a judgment call on the horns. Yes.
Right. And we'll demonstrate the difference in sound for us.
Okay.
So this is a hand stop.
This is the hand stop note. And I'll do it with the metal mute. Slightly different sound, but still within the stop genre.
So when it comes to range, you mentioned that there's differences in the hand stop and the stopping mute. Could you just explain?
Right. Well, the stopping mute, you can probably go down to a concert C comfortably. I'm a high horn player primarily, so there are some low horn players that can specialize and go a little bit lower. But if you don't know what you're going to get from day to day horn player wise, the good middle of the road would be probably a concert C below middle C.
Concert C below middle C.
Yeah. And that's a C below concert F. And some, like I said, a low horn specialist can get more power out of that. Their mouthpieces are usually set up for that, whereas my mouthpiece is set up to play above the staff accurately. And whereas in the hand stop, you won't get as good a quality.
So do you like people to say stopping mute or just do the X's and leave it to you guys?
I just like the X's, you know. And we'll make the judgments. I mean, they might tell us what type of effect they want.
Right.
You know, like I said, if it needs to be a stopped horn that's in tune within itself, within a chord, then we'll probably go with the hand.
If it's a raucous, crazy, 8 guys just blasting,
Then we'll probably go with the metal mute.
metal mute, especially because the tuning won't be
because
an issue.
it'll cut through better.
Okay, that's going to be the most cutting sound you can make.
I think so.
Right. Now, playing softly stopped.
They call that boucher is a French term. That can be done, but once again, you probably want to stay to the mid range of the horn, maybe a concert F below middle C, on up, and then you can probably get a nice stopped horn sound because it requires a lot of air to get that stop note down low. But,
So can you play some soft
Yeah,
stopped?
there's something from Daphnis and Cloy.
So that's in the sort of
That's in the mid to upper.
Mid to upper.
Yeah.
What about in the lower range, really soft? What's that sound like?
It'll sound really soft. And that'll blend with woodwinds and things quite nicely.
Yeah. Now, could you play a swelling note? does that sound like with the mute now? Similar passage. This is a comparison.
I would probably use a metal mute if I were to ask to play in that range. It's more comfortable to play that way. Once again, if I had to play in tune with someone else, then I would probably then use the hand and manipulate for pitch.
But I guess the moral of the story is, regardless of what the composer puts, you guys are going to make the best judgment call for the passage and the surroundings.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the normal mute, the straight mute.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that and what it does? And
the straight mute just gives if we see something that says sordine or mute, fiber mute, wood mute, it's all the same. It's the non-metal mute, and it's used to kill some of the overtones that come out of the bell when it's open, and give it a more faraway sound or a softer sound. Or sometimes you can get a very raucous sound too if you play loud down low.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a more of a faraway sound. That was a Brahms second piano concerto, third horn part, and the mute we don't play it muted, but that type of sound would help it to sound far away and softer. Or I've had a couple times where composers have asked to just rein in all the overtones, and so I'll bring in a mute like this and actually play it. And they don't even know I'm playing muted. They just like it because it doesn't overwhelm everything else in the orchestra. Like that.
And is the range the same with the mutes as it is with no mutes?
It's still a little bit hard to get down in the range, but we can pretty much cover most of the range with the mute in.
So play a few really low notes just so we can get a taste for what that sound would be.
You can get quite low with the mute in.
So what's it sound like with a long soft note with the mute in? Now play really loud with the same mute. So you can really still make a big sound.
Yeah, you can get a big sound, but it's got that a little bit of edge to it, but not it bridges between that and the stop note.
And what about a low long note with the mute? Okay, could you play that now without the mute? Same note? Do you find when you've got a blend with a woodwind chord, muted or unmuted is better?
Once again, that depends on what's required. There are oftentimes I'll have my horn players put in mutes, and no one knows it because it's just what we're doing might be too overwhelming for the flute or the oboe or something, and so we'll actually put the mute in such a way that it still sounds open. But what we've basically done, we've used that mute to cut the vibration of the bell, because the bell is what creates all these overtones, and so by putting the mute in, it can sound soft without quite so many overtones.
Interesting.
And once again, you don't know when we're doing it or not, but we'll do it. There's another thing, this is a trade secret.
Okay, this is
all right. This is hot off the press. There was a great orchestrator whose name was Morton Stevens. We called him Morty Stevens, and a great composer. And Hawaii 5-0, he's most famous for, although he probably dashed that off in 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But he wrote some great stuff. I got to work on TV shows with him. But he had a thing where if he wanted the horns to have a nice blended sound and still sound open, he would have one person put the mute in on the same line with two other persons who were playing open. Mm-hmm. So what he got there was a nice homogenized sound which still had the open sound but not quite the overwhelming overtones. So if every now and then I'll have a composer ask me to get a sound like that, I'll just turn to my section. I'll go, okay, Morty Stevens.
And they know what
and they know exactly what it is, and I'll point to one person and they'll put the mute in, and then we'll get that more of a subdued yet open sounding horn sound to balance.
Right. Interesting.